Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to have a conversation about how to select companies that are potentially interesting for investing. This is a subject that comes regularly on the front side of conversation I'm having with a lot of people who are having the certain characteristic. First of all, they have some money that they would like to use in a way that creates wealth, so just not throwing it away basically. The other characteristic they have is that they have no experience with the stock market. They have no experience in financial management. They don't understand how to select a company that is good versus a company which is not good. And they don't want to risk their money doing something stupid, which is a very good idea to start with. Now, the financial industry is peculiar in the way it does create confusion, I would say intentionally. And the reason why the financial industry is using all these complicated terms and it is kind of mysterious in the way it works. It says something, but it just doesn't say it. It uses complicated words which need interpretations, are not always as clear as they should. All this is based on the fact that the financial industry lives, at least for a part of it, on selling financial advice and expertise to people who do not know anything about it. Okay, so it's a form of income for financial industry, financial advisor, analysts, experts of all kind, trainers, and all these kind of things. Which is absolutely fine. I mean, they do have arguably some expertise they want to capitalize on. There is a very large amount of people who is willing to learn from them how to do certain things. So there is nothing wrong in the fact that one sells a service to the other. But what I would like to do today is just to give you some elements that could help you simplify a bit the way to understand the difference between a good company and a bad company. This is, as usual, not financial advice at all. I'm not advising you to buy, sell, doing anything of any kind. This is for educational purposes only, and these are my experiences, what I personally find useful, and it works for me. Maybe it will work for you as well, but don't take my word for it. If you feel like testing it, do it. But remember, it's your own decision. I'm not advising you to do anything here. So when we are talking about financial management, numbers, companies, and so on and so on, the vast majority of people, as soon as a conversation goes in that direction, they go blank because they feel confused and unprepared to understand the very basics of investing, particularly for what concerns investing in what company and what not. And one of the ways I find very useful to explain the difference between a good company and a bad company, what I consider a good company versus a bad company, is just not talking about companies at all. It's a little trick that I'm using with myself to reduce an apparently complicated question to a very simple one. So instead of thinking about companies, I think about people. And I imagine the following scenario. So somebody comes to me and asks for 1,000 euros as a loan. What do I do? Well, the first thing in deciding if I want to lend money to this person, let's say this person is a guy, is first of all to understand who the person is, right? Because one of the main ingredients in my decision is understanding if this guy is a crook or is not a crook, right? Because if this guy is dishonest, his intention is not to lend money from me, but to get the money and run. So that's the first real basic question I need to ask myself. Now, it's not particularly difficult to figure out if this guy is a crook or not. Just ask around, make some basic checks on if this guy is known, where he lives, what he does, this kind of stuff. So crooks are normally persons who are very well known, and if he looks like being one of them, stay away from lending him a single cent. The second thing you have to ask yourself, once you conclude that this guy is not dishonest to start with, is if he will ever be able to repay you the money he lent, the 1,000 euros, right? And there are certain things that he needs to have in order to be able to do that in the future. The first thing he needs to have is an income. If this guy does not have an income, a salary, an income from business, a pension, you name it, doesn't matter. He doesn't make any money, right? He gets your 1,000 euros. How do you expect this guy to be able to repay you the 1,000 euros if he doesn't make any money? How is he gonna make, how is he gonna find the money to give back to you one day if he doesn't make any by himself? It's a very important question. So if this person is making money, so if this person is actually producing some kind of wealth somehow, the second big question is to understand how much debt he already has. Now here we have to compare a bit two different things, right? So we concluded that this guy is not a crook. Good. He's an honest person. We concluded that this guy has some form of income, which is good, fine. He wants to have 1,000 euros from you. How much debt he already has? Suppose this guy is making 50,000 euro a year, okay, in income. And suppose this guy already asked 50 other people for 1,000 euros in loan, okay? Which means he's making 50,000 euros in income, but he has 50,000 euros in debt. So everything he earns goes out in repaying that debt. What is the chance that your debt will be repaid in such a situation? It's quite small, because the guy is loaded with debt, and the more debt he accumulates, the more difficult it is for him to repay not only you, but everybody else. So understanding that the debt load of this person is very, very important. It can be credit cards, it can be a mortgage, it can be taxes, it can be grocery bills, anything goes. You need to understand, when somebody asks you for money, how much this person is underwater in terms of debt. If this person has no debt, that's ideal, because everything that is income is in theory available to repay your debt. If this person has already some debt, but his income is sufficient to repay your debt and any other debt he already has, it's okay. It's not ideal, but it's okay. If this person has too much debt already, you should pass on the generous offer he's proposing to you. The third aspect, which is important, is the aspect of cash. Okay, so we concluded this guy has an income, this guy hasn't much debt, but now he's asking money from you, which means he doesn't have the money himself. Why is that? this is a cash transaction, right? Because a loan is normally made in cash, can be something else, but it will be a cash equivalent, something that he can sell quickly and raise cash. So why is this guy asking you for a loan? What is the reason for that? Well, you can assume this guy has no cash available, otherwise he wouldn't come to you. And you have to ask yourself, why is that? Now, suppose this person comes to you and say, look, I have a good job, I have no problem, I'm asking for money because I have an unexpected expense that I cannot pay right away because, it's before the end of the month, my car broke down, I need 1,000 euros to fix it because if I don't fix it, I cannot go to work and I have a lot of problems. Okay, that's a valid reason. This is an incidental situation, right? Can be a business person coming to you with the same question and asking you those 1,000 euros because he wants to invest them in buying, I don't know, a new machine for his business. And he wants to have that money with the intention to expand his business. He doesn't have that money right now, so he's looking to borrow money from others to do so. Okay, it's also, it's a conceivable approach, it makes sense. But imagine somebody who comes to you and say, you know what, I need 1,000 euros because I just got fired. I am in the middle of a personal situation for which I need to live under a bridge in a tent, and I need 1,000 euros to eat. Okay, so basically you are bankrupt, and while it would be very generous to help this guy surviving this very difficult period, we are talking about a financial transaction here. So the lack of cash available for this guy is not coming from an incidental situation. This is something a bit more serious. And it could lead to the result that he will not be able to repay you anytime soon. So it's something that you have to consider as well. So income or some kind of profit that is coming in, the level of debt already existing, and the cash situation of this particular individual. These are the three main things that you have to look at in order to understand and to decide by yourself if you want to risk your money in lending something to this particular guy. Now, if you translate this to an investing situation, if you translate this in deciding if a company is something you should consider for investing in, these are more or less the same questions, right? I mean, would you buy a company that is losing money every day and it doesn't make a penny in sales? I mean, what company is that? If a company doesn't sell anything, goods or services, it doesn't get any form of income, and you invest in these guys, what do you think it will happen? If things remain like this, the company will go bust because they don't have a business, right? It's quite simple. Similarly, for what concerns the debt situation. If these guys are making some money, but they are making some money having a mountain of debt they have to repay anyway to a lot of other people, including you if you buy their shares, right? What is the risk you're taking in doing so? Because also in this case, this company is at risk of going bust. The amount of debt that they have is pure risk for you. So when you are facing a situation where a company is making some sales, is getting a loan, but is underwater in a sea of debt that they do have difficulties repaying already, you can ask yourself if that is a good idea to invest in that particular company. The third is the so-called cash flow and free cash. Okay, everything that has to do with cash, which is very, very important in investing. Don't underestimate it. If a company doesn't have cash flow, which means that is cash coming in, it's a problem. And it is possible that a company has on paper profits, but no cash flow. And how can this happen is the fact that the company sells a lot of stuff, products, services, whatever, but their clients are not paying. Now, if the clients are not paying, there is no cash coming into the company. How do you think that company is going to pay salaries or taxes or whatever else, the rent on their buildings? Without cash coming in from whatever activity they have, their chance of survival is very, very slim. Actually, if things continue in that way, they will probably go bust as well. Similarly, having free cash available for a company is also quite important. Why? Because if a company has, let's say, a positive saldo on a bank account, they have money available in cash right now, the possibility something happens to them that they would bring them into serious troubles in the short term is quite limited, because cash is king. With cash, a company can survive a situation which is impacting them really negatively. Which means for you, as an investor in that company, since the company has limited risk also because of their cash situation, your risk as an investor in that company is also limited. So they must have an income, they must have a reasonable amount of debt, ideally no debt whatsoever, but that doesn't happen very often, and they must have a cash situation which includes positive cash flow, money coming in, and free cash available into the business. When you have these three elements, okay, you can conclude that the business, the company, is financially solid at that time. Which doesn't mean necessarily it is a good candidate for investing in it, right? Because there could be other factors that you think are also very important to consider, and you could say, okay, I don't like this company anyway, so I don't want to buy it, basically. But if you just look at these three elements, these three main elements, you can make an initial distinction between buying a company which is a very high risk and a company which is seriously less risky than otherwise. The worst company that, the most risky company, okay, that you can buy is a company that doesn't have an income, doesn't sell anything, is saddled with a lot of debt, and the bank account is empty. This is a good candidate for a very quick bankruptcy procedure, simply because this situation is unsustainable. For an individual, being in that situation is unsustainable. For a company, is even more unsustainable. So, comparing certain typical characteristics of the counterparty, so the other side, when you make a loan to somebody, are very close, in my opinion, to those who can use to understand if a company is stable enough for you to consider investing in. Of course, there are many other things that should be considered, and one of the main and most important one is that all these situations are very temporary. So companies and individuals that are very much in troubles today can be in much better situation tomorrow. That applies to giving a loan to somebody today or waiting a couple of months to see if this guy, picks himself up and gets something sorted out in his life before trying to help me in, getting further. For a company, it's quite the same. For me, at least. A company that is in very dire straits today, to me, is not interesting, because why should I take the risk of investing in a company which is in deep troubles when there are a lot of other companies around which are not in big troubles today, and I don't expect them to be in big troubles tomorrow? If I have to choose between the one and the other, I would definitely choose for a company which is financially stable, which is not expected to get into serious troubles in the short term, and which I can count on in terms of seeing some profits coming out of it. So this is a very, very high level introduction on discriminating between companies to invest in and companies that I wouldn't invest in, just taking inspiration from something that more or less everybody, I think, would ask themselves when it comes to lending money to somebody. Do you know the guy? Does he make an income? How much debt does he have? And why is it asking for money, basically? When you ask these questions for an individual and you ask more or less the same questions for a company, you do have a basic idea of how risky it is to lend money to that individual or to buy shares of that company. Not financial advice, just for educational purposes, something to think about. Maybe it is useful. If so, thumb up, subscribe, the usual stuff. It's beautiful for me to know that these ideas are useful to somebody. And of course, if you have questions or you have subjects you would like to hear something about from me, please let me know. Thank you, and a very nice day.